Greetings, folks, and welcome back to G4G on YouTube. As I said in my comment section, it's going to be time for another Diablo Immortal video. The reason being is that it continues to get worse and worse and worse for Diablo Immortal, and honestly, Blizzard as a whole. No longer can we view Blizzard products in the silos in which the fans historically have existed. If you went back 10 years ago to 2012, there were the Warcraft fans, there were the Diablo fans. Eventually you would add the Overwatch fans. 4 years later you would have the Hearthstone fans. They all were consuming Blizzard products, however they were not necessarily traversing the bridges between the silos. They played their game, and largely that was it. But then the Blizzard launcher showed up, so you got exposed to all those Blizzard games in one area, and I truly believe people continued to cross from game to game. When you look at myself as an example, I'm an original World of Warcraft beta player who proceeded into Warcraft retail and probably was the single biggest IP that I have ever played since being born. Out of all the games and series that I've played, like the Metroid series and the Command and Conquer games, the Square Enix Final Fantasy games, so on and so forth, I would say years, literal years of my life were spent in World of Warcraft. And then Overwatch got added to it, and a little bit of Hearthstone, and of course Diablo, dating all the way back to Diablo 1, when I was just about getting out of college, if I recall correctly. So, I mean, geez, you go back to Diablo 1, Battle.net was basically a skin on IRC, if you happen to be old enough to remember what the hell IRC actually is. So it's very easy here in 2022 to say that people probably are not siloed anymore when it comes to Blizzard products. They are readily traveling back and forth between the myriad of games on their launcher. Maybe there is still a little bit of a difference between the Activision players and the Blizzard players, so that would be the Call of Duties and everything like that, compared to, you know, a WoW player compared to a Call of Duty player. But then again, that actually still happens quite a bit. So why am I bringing that up? Why am I talking about the bridges between all of the Blizzard games? Well, the thing is, Blizzard is now very much known as a giant entity. It isn't really the World of Warcraft entity anymore, and the Overwatch entity, and the Diablo one. It straight up is Blizzard, and that isn't a good thing. It's not like Blizzard's name right now is out there because of good things. For years and years and years now, unfortunately, Blizzard's name is now a bad thing. You go back and you go to the Blitzchung controversy, and you go to how bad Battle for Azeroth was received, and then you have Warcraft Reforged, Warcraft 3 Reforged being a bit of a dud, a Led Zeppelin, and then you have the Diablo 2 Remaster being a mostly dead Led Zeppelin, and then hope was put into Shadowlands, and Shadowlands didn't come through. Everybody said, you know what's got to happen here, Blizzard? You can't do the Microsoft good operating system, bad operating system thing. You have to stop the swing, the tick-tock of it, the heartbeat. It needs to be good, good, good. We are losing faith in you. And Shadowlands wasn't. It actually wasn't even a tick, a tock, a lub, a blub. It was blub and blub, really. Was it as good as Battle for Azeroth? Was it worse? Arguably, it's worse because there was expectations for it to be better. There was hopes for it to be better, and it wasn't. So it falls harder. It's not falling from a 2 and then falling down to 0. Hope made it fall from a 6 down to 0. So of course it fell with a more resounding thud. And then, of course, all of Blizzard's controversies were laid bare when the California lawsuits started happening, and we had further information that Bobby Kotick was a shitfuck weasel. And then we find out the person who committed suicide because they suffered sexual abuse at a BlizzCon hotel or a meeting hotel. You find out about the Cosby Suites, and you find out how much Blizzard went from producing the games you wanted to play and being gamer focused to just really being bro culture. And it's really, really sad. It sort of like ruins your childhood, you know? It's like finding out that Captain Crunch was a real person who did a pyramid head and sexually abused mannequins in his basement or something. It ruins everything you thought you knew. And Blizzard is exactly that now. They are the company we thought we knew, and they are that no longer. And it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So to sit here and have the issues that Diablo Immortal is having in its Metacritic scores and its user scores, they are in big, big trouble. So why are we covering this game again? What are we going to talk about that we haven't covered the first time we talked about Diablo Immortal? And that is, well, it's getting worse. It has been discovered that the monetization in Diablo Immortal is actually quite awful, and it's more insidious than originally thought. So when you are playing Diablo Immortal, you get to run these things, especially at the highest levels of the game, called rifts. You are even forced into doing these rifts when doing your story questing peters out, where all of a sudden you hit this level cap where you cannot proceed anymore simply by doing the quest. The quest will say, all right, you need to be level 35 in order to do this quest, and you're sitting there at level 33 or 32, and you're like, I don't have a story that I can do. Are you saying I just need to go out and grind a few levels to get to the story? Why is the story not guiding me through itself? Why is it not a monorail that I just get on? The Disney monorail, for example. Why is it not the Disney monorail where I can just get on at one stop and ride it to where I need to go? Why do I have to get off and walk for like 2 miles? Well, that's part of the insidious nature of Diablo Immortal. You sort of get stranded on an island for a little while, and you have to fight your way out of it. Now, this happened accidentally in vanilla World of Warcraft because the quest designers were new, and they were trying to struggle their way through creating the content because they'd never really done it before. So they accidentally had a bit of a gap right around 48 to 50, where most stories in World of Warcraft, most quest lines accidentally petered out, and people generally had to go ahead and grind dungeons and mobs for a while by accident. It wasn't on purpose. You couldn't pay to win your way through that. Well, Diablo Immortal, yeah, you can. You can pay to win your way through that with boosts and everything like that. And it is most likely heavily intentional. So, when you go ahead and you do rifts, and you get into this part of the game called a rift, which is actually how you get out of the doldrums. If you happen to remember the, I believe it was the second Pirates of the Caribbean movie, where they're just, oh, okay, wolves, they don't want me to hurt. I believe it's maybe when they're stuck in the upside down world and there's no wind, so they're not able to go anywhere until they realize, oh, we got to do the whole upside down thing and we're good. Yeah, that's quite intentional in this game, and it occurs for most people generally in the upper lower 30s to mid 30s and everything like that. So the way to get out of it is to play out your battle pass, which is a little bit slow, and do rifts. When you do rifts, you can increase the risk reward structure of it by putting in these things called crests. By putting in a crest, you can either put in the normal crests or the legendary crests. When you do the normal ones, your risk is very, very low, so your reward is very, very low. When you put in the legendary ones, your risk goes up, because what they do is they attach modifiers, or what World of Warcraft players call affixes. More example of how Blizzard products are no longer in their silos. So originally, when you played Diablo 3, you could do rifts similar to this, where you had to run through the dungeon and you had to kill a guardian before the timer ran out, and there were additional challenge levels added to the rift called modifiers, and they changed the difficulty of the rift that you were in. The more modifiers you put in, which were usually negative, the harder it was, but the greater the rewards. Blizzard moved that over to World of Warcraft and called it mythics and called it affixes. So if you did a level 1 to 10 mythic, you had one affix, and it might be something like you must be healed to full, otherwise you will slowly die, or mobs blow up when they die, or mobs when they're near other enemies are more powerful, so it promotes tighter pulling rather than group pulling, and the exploding ones mean you have to kill things single target and you shouldn't AoE them down. So these affixes increase the difficulty of the dungeon, and after you got to 10 you got 2 affixes, and then after 20 I think you got 3 affixes. And it was always on a schedule, and people knew exactly what they were dealing with, and some weeks were tough. For example, Discipline Priest had issues when it was the week where you needed to heal people to full. And that's because Discipline Priests shield people more than they actually heal people. So that was a tough week for them. So that's an example of how Blizzard began to cross up the silos. You're taking a Diablo mechanic and you're moving it into World of Warcraft. Well, they have continued that whole structure here in Diablo Immortal, where you can use the crests to increase the difficulty of your rift by doing those modifiers, or those affixes if you want to use the World of Warcraft term. Now, the problem is that when you are doing free-to-play, you get the puny crests. So your risk can never be above, say, a 2 or a 3. You have to get the legendary crests in order to get the higher risk reward structures. Those legendary crests for a free-to-play player are generally capped out. There is only so many of them you have access to without paying, and that is by design. I know you can get at least 1 per month, when you could actually burn 3 per run. You can insert 3 crests when you do a run. So imagine every day you could do however many of these runs that you want, but you only earn 1 giant modifier per month. And you have smaller, more limited ways of getting a legendary crest, but if you pay to get legendary crests, you can obviously not have to worry about the grind or the time or hitting the monthly cap and things like that. You just buy your way through the game. If you can't beat them, buy them. Well, we all knew this a week ago. We all knew this in the early reviews, and it was pointed out how insidious Diablo's monetization was because of that practice. Well, it gets worse. And I'm going to tell you how it gets worse in just a moment. As soon as I click my challenge rift and get my hilts. So the hilts are the things you turn in that get you your monthly cap, if I remember correctly. If I go up to this Elder Rift entrance, see, there's my free crest. It's these green ones. Then there are these purple ones called legendary crests. They increase the modifiers, they increase the loot. When you do a legendary crest, the disparity between a legendary and a normal crest is completely huge. It is a orange and yellowy gold explosion compared to the more blue, at best purple explosion that you just saw me go through. Well, this is where things get to be more insidious than we thought. As people have pointed out, there are two kinds of legendary crests. There are the free legendary crests that you get by going through the battle pass. So for example, I'm going to get one of them at 20. There's a regular crest. Here's this one, this legendary crest. There's the purple one. You think, okay, cool, that's a big one. Hey Napalm, that's not too bad. You only have to go up to 20 and you're going to get one. But again, like I said, you can burn up to 3 per run. And then I get at 25, by having purchased the battle pass, I get another one. So this doesn't look too awful, but yeah, actually it is. The legendary crests that occur in the free-to-play track are nerfed. They are special, and they are nerfed. If you go to the shop and you buy a crest with orbs, this eternal legendary crest is different. Notice it looks very much the same. It very much looks like Forsaken on Steam. Great Metroidvania. And it says eternal legendary crest. Now, what happens when I click on this one? Legendary crest. And if you look really, really closely, there's the gold, the thing in the head. Maybe just a tiny, tiny spike on top over there. And then if we go back to the shop and we go to crests, look at how more ornate it is up here. That's because it is actually a different crest. The crest that you use by spending orbs makes the loot that you get bind on equip. The equivalent of World of Warcraft's bind on equip. When you use the free crests that you get, even the free legendary ones, your loot is bound by account. The equivalent of bind on pickup. So, what does that mean? That means if you are a free-to-play player or a small guppy player and you get your legendary crest and you're like, okay, I didn't get the gem that I wanted. I'm going to take the gems that I did get and I'm going to sell them on the auction house, and I'm going to buy the gem that I want by selling my crap ones that I don't want, getting the money and getting the one I want. Nope, you cannot do that. The only way you can do that is if you spend money for the eternal legendary quests. You get crystals to drop that way that you don't need, and those, gems. Those gems can be sold on the auction house. So if you don't get the gems you want, you can then sell them, earn the currency to buy the ones that are more appropriate for your spec, and more are the ones that you actually want. So a free-to-play player or a small pay-to-play player is never, ever going to be keeping up in any way, shape, or form, because they don't allow you to. No amount of hard work can overcome that challenge. The fact that there is a small, subtle, disgusting difference between legendary crests and eternal legendary crests, and that you cannot spend time and gain time catching up to a pay player, makes Diablo Immortal's monetization totally disgusting. So the next question is, alright Napalm, so you don't play Diablo Immortal. You don't want to pay for it. You don't want to give them the satisfaction of playing their game and considering you to be of their player accounts and be happy about it. Okay, well, what does that mean? What does that mean for the future? What are your ramifications from it? The ramifications are it's spilling into other Blizzard products. People are so upset with Blizzard for this. Diablo 4 is already starting to lose people who might potentially be interested in it. Not only that, it looks so bad for the company. When Blizzard eventually merges with Microsoft, they're going to be a pathetic shell of their former selves. It's going to be the equivalent of telling your friend you have this wonderful cherry 1969 fastback Mustang in your garage. Absolutely wonderful condition, original engine, original parts everywhere, no rust, great tires, all this stuff. And they get there and they look in your garage and it's a hoopty in 3 pieces. That's what Blizzard's doing to Microsoft. When Microsoft gets a hold of this company, if there's 7 players that play their games, it could be a lot. Because the World of Warcraft players are pissed off from Battlefield of Azeroth going into Shadowlands. Dragon's Flight is getting some people excited, but everybody on a whole is upset with this company. Now, there's postings for Diablo 4 positions that seem to imply that there is going to be a monetization track in Diablo 4. They say it's going to be cosmetics only, but the job description as posted has people scared. Diablo 2 is going to be free to play. Excuse me, not Diablo 2, Overwatch 2. People are scared of that. Overwatch has been kind of a good example of how to do monetization right. Just skins, you know? If you want your Mercy to look like a Halloween witch, you could do that. But then again, you don't have to spend 1 red cent in Overwatch at all. So people are maybe a little afraid that Overwatch 2 is somehow going to take your money in ways that people don't want. And that's bothersome. Diablo 4, people are scared if they're going to somehow over-monetize a fully purchasable game. You know, a $40, $60 game. Is it going to have microtransactions in it beyond cosmetics and maybe sexy gear slots and everything like that? Expansions, okay, you've always paid for Diablo's expansions. That's nothing new. That's not particularly bad. But what else? What are they going to do? And you know what? It all reflects on Blizzard now. People still remember all the harassment claims in court cases. It's not over. Blizzard isn't turning it around. Not yet. Maybe Overwatch 2, maybe Diablo 4, maybe even World of Warcraft, Dragonflight. But right now, speaking as an accomplished PR person before my life changed and I went in a different direction, this is not good at all. And the fact that Blizzard continues to ignore the outcries about Diablo Immortal and is not giving anybody any faith, and there is no relief. This is Hurricane Katrina with nary a FEMA or Red Cross in sight. We, as Diablo players, are so stranded on an island right now with this game. We don't have two sea turtles to lash together to float on out of here. It's just bad. And there is no relief. None in sight whatsoever. They need to fix these scummy practices. They need to do something to bring people back in to the Blizzard hug. Right now, people are looking at Blizzard as that crazy two-tooth ant that goes to hug you at a family event that somehow simultaneously smells of cat piss and Ginate grandmother shower bath liquid. That's nobody wants to get hugged by that person at the family events, and that's Blizzard right now. They have two teeth and they smell like cat piss. They need to fix this. They need to have good community relations. They need to do something that says we are about the game and the players and not about the money, and they're not doing it. And I don't know if anybody's going to care to play their games by the time that the turnaround games could potentially show up. Imagine you're playing World of Warcraft and you can pay to modify your dungeon to have an increased chance of loot or an increased chance to drop invincible when you fight the Lich King, or a legendary gear out of Molten Core in Classic, WoW Classic or something like that. Imagine a pop-up when you go into a new raid in Dragonflight that says, would you like to use a Dragon Ball to up the loot chances in your dungeon? And Dragon Balls cost 99 cents each. And you have big Dragon Balls and you have little Dragon Balls, and big Dragon Balls are $4.99 and count for 6 little ones. Can you imagine if that monetization was in World of Warcraft? Well, it's in Diablo, so who's to say it will never show up in WoW? We hope it won't, because it never had a place in there, but look at what Blizzard is doing, and this is what the average player is scared of. This is a problem, and Blizzard needs to fix it, because Diablo Immortal is the worst thing that they've done at the worst time. They needed good community relations. They needed a good showing in front of fans and said, here, Apex Legends, a perfect example. Apex Legends with EA. When Apex Legends first came out, everybody was hating on EA. They killed Visceral Studios. The Star Wars Battlefront series was so overly monetized and pay to win, and paying skipped so much time and experience spent in the game. And then Apex Legends came out of nowhere and just quietly was like, hey, you remember Titanfall? Well, here's a battle royale kind of like Titanfall 1 and 2. What do you guys think? And people went, hey, shit, this is kind of better than PUBG and Fortnite. Who made this? EA? EA made this? Crappy knock your grandmother over a barrel and take her from behind EA? That EA? And everybody was like, yeah. Huh. Maybe EA isn't so bad. That's what Blizzard needs to do. They need an Apex Legends to come out of nowhere and fix this community imaging that they have. They're not going to do it. Sadly, they're not going to do it. At least not in this game generation. We may have to wait for the next with Diablo 4 and World of Warcraft and Overwatch 2, which are not necessarily coming out soon. And by then, Blizzard may lose so much of their fan base, it might be unrecoverable, and Microsoft might be handed the most disease-riddled, filthy nugget they've ever had, and their chances of turning it around and making it good again and making it valuable to people again, they might not be able to do it. They really might not. No amount of saying, hey, you could play this game on the Kinect will actually do any good if this thing is already dead and buried by the time it gets in their hands. So we'll see. Hopefully the sound mix in this video is a little better than the last one, and I will see you guys on the next video here on G4G. Thanks for checking it out. I appreciate your time.